like to call this meeting of October 14th of the Board of Supervisors to order. If you'd all please stand. Is Pastor Dan Hall here?
Would you pray with me, please? Almighty God, we thank you for the recognition that we have the freedom in this nation to make decisions and to get together and vote and look for the best interest of all. And certainly in a day when things are changing quickly, needs and demands are rising, and it seems like resources are diminishing, the decisions that this board makes are difficult. So I pray today that you would bless them with wisdom, and somehow in this process today that you would bring a spirit of peace, and that the decisions that are made would be ones in which everybody could go home feeling good about. We pray your manifest blessing on this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Supervisor Long, would you lead us in the pledge?
And over heart, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes have been moved and seconded. Hearing no objection, minutes are approved. We're at agenda review. Mr. CEO.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, there are just a few minor corrections. On item 15, you have a substitute page which brings that letter up to date for action today. And you also have a minor correction on a date for item number 23. The date should have read March 11th. There has been a request from Supervisor Michaels to continue item 24. And item 13 is related to item 24, so you may wish to pull that for brief discussion.
Okay. My understanding is there's a request to put 13 and 24 together. What I'd like to do is let us discuss that and decide whether we want to pull it at the point in time of discussion. But, all right. Okay. Any other agenda items?
Yes, I would like to ask that we continue item 9 until next week. I wanted to get an opportunity to see the contracts, and we'll be able to have that opportunity soon.
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Flynn.
I'm not going to ask that, and I am just trying to find the number now. The item on the experimental aircraft, the major issue there for me is that the lease will be conditioned that no flights over populated areas, and I hope that's the case.
That's item 22?
22.
So you're not asking for it to be pulled, you just want to make that statement?
I just want a public
a
recognition of this, sure, by the lessee. And
when we get to that item, you could make that statement again then? Is that right? Okay. Any other agenda review items? No other agenda review items. The rest of the agenda will stay as it stands. We're ready for the consent agenda. Items 8 through 17 minus item 9 being pulled, item 13 being combined with 24. Correction for item 15.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Hearing no objection, motion carries. We're now at the public comment period time. Do we have public comment cards? From our clerk, we do. Thank you. Public comment period. It's the opportunity for the public to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. And we have a timing system here that will alert you as your time is running out. First public comment is Mary Harris.
Good morning, Steve, members of the board. My name is Mary Harris. I live in Thousand Oaks. Just wanted to bring to your attention 3 things. The items 15, 16, 17 I support highly on the agenda, so no more said on that. The last thing I want to bring to your attention, I couldn't speak last week because there's last time in such a rush, is I would like to request of the Board of Supervisors that at the time when citizens signed the petition for Prop 172, which you guys changed, I would like to request that the Board of Supervisors bring that back to agendize that, and for people to re-sign the petition to bring it back to the voters. We as voters lost our rights in this to make sure that money was put towards the Sheriff's Department, and I'm hoping that Bob and Greg Totten went out on this, and I'm sure that they will, and I did talk to Bob about this on the phone last week, and I'm really hoping that you guys really see that we as voters deserve the right to re-vote on this. It was wrong to have the whole thing changed and then to take our rights away, which was worse, was really not right at all, and I really would respect that the board bring this back, agendize it, and then I would like to be notified or whatever. I'd like to see this done so the voters have a chance to redo this and re-sign petitions or whatever we have to do. So, and the last thing I want to say, Kathy, the expansion of the VCTC board, which was vetoed, I'm really upset about. But for you to say it was piecemeal, Kathy, no further from the truth. That was voted on by the Board of Supervisors. They had asked Tony to take the bill and stuff to see if we could get it, the board expanded, but it was not done piecemeal. VCTC knew what they were doing. So it couldn't have been any further from the truth. I go to the meetings, I know what happens. So believe me, and John Flynn is vice chair. John, you know what's going on with this. I mean, like I say, our board was vetoed by the governor with the expansion of the board. But like I said, it was not done piecemeal, so I just want to let you know. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Evan Hughes.
Good morning. My name is Evan Hughes, and I live at 2201 Pebble Beach Trail, Oxnard. And I'm here today on behalf of Channel Islands Yacht Club. We see on the agenda that you are hard at work thinking through what should happen in the harbor, and one of the things that we would like to happen is that you split out parcel D2 and allow the yacht club to purchase the building and enter into a long-term ground lease. We went over our financial qualifications last time. We're your longest tenant in the harbor, and as Supervisor Long said, we want to stay there. So I won't use my whole 5 minutes. We would truly appreciate you taking that action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. The next speaker is Mr. Thomas Naylor.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Tom Naylor. I live at the 172 La Patera in Camarillo. I've been a resident of the Ventura County area for some 23 years. In that period, I've been active in the community, primarily through the Yacht Club, Channel Islands Yacht Club, which I'm here to represent. For the last 20 years, I've had a boat in that marina, Channel Islands Marina, right in front of the Yacht Club for all those 20 years. Truly enjoyed that Yacht Club. Other things I've done in the community, I've been very active in the Rotary, which I'm a past president there. I'm a past president of Channel Island Yacht Club. I feel that we definitely need our parcel D2 separate so that we can control our own future. I wake up in the middle of the night with the fear that my picture as a past Commodore in that yacht club is going to be in some rec room of some big condominium on that location. And so I feel we truly need our own destiny, and the only way we can do that is to have control of that piece of property, parcel D2, and we have the money to purchase the property, the building from you, and we have the money to maintain it, and we would just like to keep it the way it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Naylor. Next speaker is Opal Gilpin.
Good morning. I'm very happy to be here to talk to you this morning. My name is Opal Gilpin. I'm a resident in Mandalay Bay. I'm a property owner. Been here for many years, very active in this community through the Channel Islands Yacht Club. As you are all aware, we are very definitely a self-help club. We support every activity within this harbor and many within the community. We are the community that you represent, from Santa Paula to Thousand Oaks and all the surrounding counties. That is the composition of our membership. Our membership comes from all walks of life. We are basically not a very wealthy club. I know that some people have felt that for some time we have perhaps had a free ride in that our rent on our building has not been excessively high. But I ask you to consider that the members of this yacht club did in fact build this building with their own hands and their own money. They have been responsible not only for building that building, which we don't own and would like to buy. We have paid all the taxes on it, the insurance on it. We have spent thousands upon thousands of dollars in all of the upkeep, all of the maintenance, all of the upgrades. We are a very, very active club. We support many activities within the harbor. We feel that we are good neighbors and a very, very important part of the harbor community in the activities that we have solely undertaken. From fish hatcheries to junior sailing programs, I and my family have 4 generations of enjoying boating and fishing and activities in this harbor, and I'd like to see that go on to my great-grandchildren. We are here to ask you to allow us to continue negotiations with you to acquire the primary leasehold in Parcel B2 and to acquire our clubhouse. Our membership is 100% willing to support this action, to continue on with the required renovation of the building out of our own pocket. We just ask your support to allow us to continue as a club. Without the primary leasehold and the resulting financial burden, we feel that it would be a terrible burden on the club, and there is a great possibility that our club will not exist anymore. We are the first yacht club here. We have been here for 40 years. We'd like to be here for another 100. We'd like to see our great-grandchildren continue the tradition of community support, supporting our Channel Islands, supporting our harbor, supporting the boating activities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Gilpin, and we certainly recognize there are many other members of the Yacht Club here. That ends the public comment period. We're now ready for board comments. Supervisor Long? Okay.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, and thank you. All I have this morning is to ask the board to adjourn in memory of 3 residents from the district, and that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Parks.
A couple of things. One, I took seriously the governor's veto of the Senate bill regarding the reconfiguration of VCTC, and I look forward to working with all the cities and trying to put together one that seems to now have a lot more consensus than it did when it was originally put on the assembly floor. So hopefully we'll be able to move on that, and if we can do it by January, I think that's all the better. I also wanted to compliment Frank C. He came to our Oak Park Municipal Advisory Council, Oak Park MAC, and gave the MAC a kind of a shortened version of a workshop on the Brown Act, something that I think is really important for our advisory councils to understand, to assure that they don't violate the Brown Act, and understand, particularly when we have new members coming on and all, that there are certain rules that we have to follow, and I really appreciate him coming out and in the evening all the way out to Oak Park and presenting that. It was very helpful, and I think the Oak Park MAC now is going to be having an item on their next agenda to re-vote on a issue that they allocated funds on, which violated the Brown Act, so that they can cure that. I also wanted to comment that we're having some good success out in the Triumphant Sanitation District. They had a proposal to build a new water tank, a new water reservoir, and there are a couple of alternatives that I've brought forward that are now being looked at. One is there's a large tank owned by Cayugas called the Cheeseboro tank, and that large tank was going to supply Amundsen Ranch City, and now that it's not needed there for Amundsen Ranch, one of the benefits is that the Triumphant Sanitation District may now be able to purchase it for a lot less than it would cost to build a new one. So another benefit from Amundsen Ranch. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Flynn.
Okay, thank you. Board members and Mr. Chair, I would hope that we can listen carefully to the Yacht Club. They've come here now on 2 occasions with the same number of people, and I think it's important for our community, that we listen to them, and that we look at every way to accomplish what they wish. With those words, I would ask also that we adjourn in memory of the list that I submitted to the
Thank you. The three things that I'd mention quickly. Certainly, we have heard from yacht club members. Appreciate you coming down. I think that that it is clear that that the board is hearing good communication from you about your interest. Second thing, I just want to publicly state that I'll be asking I'll be bringing an item to the board to discuss the VCTC reorganization so that we can identify what it is that we think is the critical components of a consensus bill so that it can move timely, so that we can be ready with a bill by January. The third thing is we had a tremendous celebration here last week for Roma Armbruster, and I think so many of us feel really fortunate that we had it last week while Roma was here to share in that. But it's certainly sad for all of us that that we've now lost Roma, and you know, it's funny. It was easier for me to do this last week than it is this week. But we really have lost a good friend in Roma Armbruster, and I know that saddens all of us here. With that, I'd also like to ask us to adjourn in memory of the other people on this list. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
You reminded me. Thank you. I must have been sleeping earlier. And we have lost a good friend in Roma. And I'd like to say we'll have another opportunity, I think, to honor her. We have many, as has been noted in the articles, for personal support with the goals for the wetlands. I will be preparing for the board additional requests for support for resolution to go before the Conservancy, which will be heard October 23rd in the Conservancy for further acquisition of some of that acreage in the Ormond Beach. So I'll be bringing that forward, and it'll be another way that we can demonstrate our support for a woman who has made a significant difference in our county. And appreciate the celebration of life we had last Tuesday was truly that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That ends our board comments, and we now move to the non-time certain agenda items. We don't have our first time certain until 9:30, so that takes us to item 22, Department of Airports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We'd like to ask that this item be tabled for a week. If that would be all right, to do a little bit more work at request of a member of your board. Okay.
Request for the item be tabled. Do we have to officially vote on that now that we're at this point in the agenda?
Move that we continue to next week.
Moved and seconded. No opposition. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 23 with the changed letter that we have in front of us, changing the date. County Executive Officer.
Yes. I have one additional correction. I think the spell checker was made in Sweden, not in Scotland, and they've dropped the T out of my name. Yeah, so that's one more correction. John Stunn.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Do we have, yes.
Just to comment on this, I appreciate the excellent work that's been accomplished already by our Ethics Commission, clearly with clear guidance and support of our County Counsel's Office. This article, I think, really demonstrates that both in having a commission that has legal standing and understanding, and also public members, that it's put forth some very good basic operating policies that will benefit all of us. So I think it's good work, and the action is to move to receive and file.
Motion to receive and file?
I do have one comment on it, and something that I had expressed previously. And when you're in the middle of a political campaign and there has been complaints filed with the commission, I think it's really important for the commission not to comment on the complaint because it can affect the election. And there's section 2, I guess, of Article 9 provides that whenever a commissioner communicates with the news media that they should say it's this their opinion. Well, I still think that maybe they might want to consider having some kind of protocol that they don't comment when there has an investigation going on. That there should not be comments until it's completed. Otherwise, it can have effects to the election. So that's my only comment to the commission. Maybe we can, as a board, if the board so agrees, provide that to the commission as our recommendation.
So besides the motion to receive and file, which we
May I
have,
just make a comment on it? Supervisor Parks brings up an issue which needs to be discussed. I think she made a good point. On the other hand, it kind of shows the complication of what we're doing here, and we got to be aware of it. So someone brings a complaint to the commission, and the request is that not be discussed by the commission publicly, so I can understand this.
It's I'm just finding it's a little ambiguous because it does talk about how they address the media and to explain that this might just be their own opinion. It also says that they shall not make any public comments regarding a pending complaint until the commission has made a probable cause determination. So I see a little incongruity in this. So I would just want to have that assurance that they aren't going to be making comments in the middle of the campaign as commissioners, representing themselves as a commissioner. That could affect an election. That's my only concern.
On the other hand, do we have any kind of wording in there that talks about a speedy resolution of the issue? Because there may be a complaint come along that needs to be made public. It's kind of a hard issue to discuss here.
well, if I could, just my understanding is that there will be a review done for probable cause, and that could be a speedy resolution if somebody says there's no probable cause here. What may not be speedy is if they decide to have a hearing, but if there is no probable cause, that could happen fairly quickly. I think I think Supervisor Parks brings up a good point, because the media would say such and such person who's on the commission, but not speaking on behalf of the commission, but speaking on behalf of themselves. The only question I have, I'm trying to capture the flavor of what the commission did, is that they said that they shouldn't comment until the investigation is over. But my guess is that they realize there's a First Amendment. They can't go all the way to the point where they say you cannot speak, but rather it would be the policy to not comment, I suspect. So could I suggest this, that we make this motion to receive and file, and that I think if there is a way to actually request, respectfully request the commission to consider this language so that they try to make it clear that they don't, that one member of the commission doesn't disadvantage somebody with a personal comment, but at the same time respect that. Could I suggest that we let you investigate that a little bit with the county staff and their relationship with the commission, and see if there is something that could happen?
Yeah, I think it would be really simple if they just broke out the two separate sections, one when you can deal with the media and when you can't, instead of putting it all together in one, so that it is absolutely clear that they don't make comments regarding investigations.
You want to bring that?
So it's a simple matter, but I would be glad to do that on a personal basis.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and move the item.
Well, Supervisor Long's already moved it.
Sorry,
You want to second it? Right?
Excuse me.
Do you want to give us your perspective real quick while we're here on the topic? It might be efficient.
Well, any of the comments you have, staff will be taking back to the commission and chat with them about. I think that both of your comments are are valid. I mean, there is a concern about First Amendment rights, and so trying to walk this line. So we will be sharing those comments. I'd also like to extend my appreciation to both Cheryl Monzon of the CAO staff and to Matt Smith, who has worked with the Commission on these procedures and pulling this together over a short period of time. So.
Great. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. My comment on this is this, that I'd like to point out. What I think the CEO staff and the Commission have done great work. When you first form a commission like this, there's a whole lot that has to get fleshed out. I mean, we created the skeleton, but there's just a lot of operating procedures that have to get fleshed out, and that's what's happened here. So this is good work. The other thing is, as they did this work and they fleshed out these details, they did it in a way to ensure that the Commission is going to operate very efficiently. Because one of the things we struggled with was, number one, how much does it cost to operate a commission and all that stuff? Well, number one, we've gotten 2 judges that are on the commission as volunteer time. I mean, that's quality service that would cost a fortune if you were trying to pay for that. We have 5 good people on the commission that are there working as volunteers, and the procedures that they set up are procedures that if we have egregious problems, so you've got the Commission ready to deal with it, but they're not going to get nickeled and dimed. It's going to operate efficiently and not be something that's going to be a real cost to the county, particularly if there are no real significant problems that come up. So my compliments, and if you'd pass that on to the Commission also, I'd appreciate it.
Let me just go on from your comment. I think we need not mislead the public. This proposition, this commission, and what we've done with campaign financing, excuse me, I'm sorry, is it's not like it's not going to cost anything. There's going to be a cost to this, and when you get into due process issues, there's going to be a definite cost to this. So we've got to go into this with our eyes wide open, make sure we don't mislead people, make sure they know there's going to be some kind of a cost. We don't know how much that cost is going to be. We could look at other entities who have adopted such commissions as we have and see what their experience has been. But it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be without cost. I want to repeat that. So let's continue with it, but let's continue with our eyes open on it.
I appreciate those comments, and I would certainly agree there is going to be a cost, and I, at the same time, recognize that the Commission's come up with ways to be cost efficient, but there is a cost. We've already incurred a significant, but I think very good cost-benefit ratio, and that's with the electronic filing and the money that's gone into that. But the electronic filing is a tremendous benefit for the public to be able to easily access, for everybody to access, and in the long run, I think, for us. So,
may I say something on that point with the electronic filing? In making copies, my wife, who's my treasurer, has noted with vigor that there are no addresses on the contributor, and I think there should be.
Well, there are addresses on the hard copy that we file.
There are,
but
right.
You're not allowed to put the addresses on the internet. So on the internet copy, when you go onto the internet, you can't get the address, but you can get the address by going down to the clerk, which is what the old way you would have had to go to the clerk. You can get the address by going.
I understand the difference, but it's still not a full disclosure electronically.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Any opposition to receive and file? None. Motion carries. Item 24 we're going to discuss. We do have a request by the absent supervisor to pull, but we'll have the discussion first, and then we'll have some discussion first. Let's put it that way. We may have more discussion.
And again, that's to bring 13 in with it?
13 and 24 together.
Together.
Good morning, board members. For the record, I'm Kay Martin, Director of the Environmental and Energy Resources Department. It was almost exactly 2 years ago to the day that your board adopted a comprehensive bioenergy policy for the county. And to refresh your memory, that included about 7 basic elements. The first was business attraction. How can we attract clean bioindustries to our county? And these would be industries that produce power and fuel and chemicals from renewable sources, namely crops that we could grow locally and also waste, organic waste materials. A second element was procurement. How can we incorporate these types of environmentally friendly products into our purchasing programs at the county? A third element was siting and permitting. How can we facilitate the siting of these facilities, most of which are not anticipated in the current regulatory frameworks of the county and the state? A fourth element was regional approaches. And at that time, if you recall, we were considering applying for a grant from the Public Utilities Commission to support the formation of a regional energy authority. So how could we bring cities and the business community together to work on this issue? A fifth element was agricultural outreach. How can we engage the agricultural community directly in bioenergy development, not only in the production of basic feedstocks for these industries, but also as beneficiaries for things like distributed energy options for agricultural operations? A sixth element was our legislative platform, bringing these items into the policy of the county for state and federal legislation. And then finally, and probably most importantly, how can we create the essential partnerships that we need to move this agenda forward? In other words, bringing together the convergent interests of and resources of a variety of sectors in the county to make this happen. Well, here we are 2 years later, and we have not only initiated these programs, but we have become recognized as one of the leading counties in the state with regard to the promotion and development of bioenergy programs. And just to note what we've accomplished in these 7 areas, we have 2 facilities going in, one at the university, an energy project, and one at the Navy base, a fuel development project, which is the subject of one of the items before you today. We have created and are in the process of expanding an environmental purchasing program for the county. We have convened an interagency committee for regulatory activities, and this year we'll be looking at the zoning ordinance and the general plan in terms of potential barriers that they may pose to the siting of new clean industries. We have formed, as you know, this year, the Regional Energy Alliance in coordination with the cities of Thousand Oaks, Oxnard, and Ventura, and also, of course, the business community. In terms of agricultural outreach, the Environmental and Energy Resources Department this year is beginning a major effort in conjunction with our local agricultural agencies and the Bio-Based Manufacturers Association to engage the agricultural community. And we will be holding a summit next spring to bring manufacturers and industries in connection with the local agricultural community. We've also participated in the development of a bioenergy project at Gill's Onion, which is a processor in the city of Oxnard. And then finally, we've incorporated these policies into our legislative platform, and we've reached out to the community to form a number of partnerships. And I think if there's any aspect of our policy platform that's important, it's the partnership or the collaboration element. You'll recall in January of 2002, your board entered into its first memorandum of understanding with the Gold Coast Innovation Center, an energy think tank at the new university campus at Channel Islands. And then last June, your board entered into a MOU which formed the Channel Islands Bioenergy and Bioproducts Consortium. And that expanded this collaboration to include the National Park Service, the Navy, and the Central Coast Biotechnology Center. What I'm bringing to you today is 2 additional and expanded partnerships in the form of memorandums of understanding, one on the subject of bioproducts promotion, and that's item 13. And that item would join the county with the Navy with two national nonprofit organizations, the Bio-Based Manufacturers Association and the New Uses Council. Both of these organizations are interested in utilizing their connections with the Navy and with Ventura County to develop a national prototype on how to approach local governments to cooperatively develop these options of replacing petroleum-based products with renewable and environmentally friendly bioproducts. So that's the first MOU on item 13. The second one addresses the issue of biodiesel fuel, and we're very proud of the project that the Navy base is developing. This is a 1 million gallon a year facility which will be producing biodiesel fuel from recycled cooking oils. And the MOU specifically addresses a partnership between the Navy, the National Park Service, and the county to share in the testing of this fuel in local fleets and in local diesel generation applications. The MOU in item 24 provides that the county will receive 20,000 gallons of biodiesel fuel and will be able to utilize this fuel in county fleets or in special district fleets as it decides is appropriate. And in exchange for this, we will be providing information on the performance of that fuel, which, although it meets federal standards, we're interested in documenting the performance in terms of mileage, in terms of emissions, and in terms of its impact on general engine life.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Can I ask you a question? I'm only a little bit concerned for Supervisor Michaels, who may want to hear this report if we are going to continue it. I do want to ask two questions. If the board continues it, is there anything on here that's time sensitive? All right. In other words, do we have to take action on 13 or 24 today from your perspective?
The time-sensitive issue would be the hoped-for plan to, if your board concurs in these MOUs, to participate in a joint signing of these with the other parties at the Navy base grand opening of the biodiesel facility on October 30.
If we take action next week, would we still be all right in terms of being able to do that?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And then do you have much more in your report that might be information that Supervisor Michaels will want to hear next week, or are you close to the end there? Okay.
Yes, this is pretty much what I had to say, other than the bioproducts MOU also has another element which we feel is germane to the future of the Navy base and its partnership with the county, and that is that the Navy base is planning to request $10 million in the 2005 DoD budget, Department of Defense budget, to fund the development of a national center for bioproducts and bioenergy development at the base. This will be a kind of unique facility nationally. It will make our Navy base the center for basically military testing of various products that can also have relevance for the general public.
Great. Thank you very much. Supervisor Long, you wanted to make some comments?
Yes, I'd like to, and I appreciate the information from Dr. Martin, and I don't know what Supervisor Michaels' questions may be, and it may just be that she would really like to have a thorough understanding and briefing on it. But so I would recommend that we do continue it 1 week, but certainly with the intent of looking at that October 30th date. There has been tremendous excitement building from both these partners related to both 13 and 24, but for our region, frankly, coming out of both state and federal interest in the partners we have at the table interested in alternative energies, interested in what we started working on well over 2 years ago in the whole energy resource matrix. And another piece of this certainly is that the Regional Energy Alliance, which in fact has another meeting Thursday, is very engaged with all of this in an umbrella fashion. We too are going after an additional significant CPUC grant. So I think it's exciting, and I think that these partners are quite excited. So I hope that the message out to them in continuing this 1 week isn't anything other than just to make sure we have all supervisors fully informed.
So we got a motion to...
Yes.
May I have a comment here before you make the motion?
Do you want to second the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Yeah. What is the motion?
To continue this for 1 week.
I don't want to be accused of seconding something that wasn't said. This is a major step forward. I hope what we're doing today is saying conceptually we're going to do this. We'll simply ratify it next week. If you look at the parts of the agreement, it shows that the Navy, the military, and the civilian populations and public entities are moving ahead in a cooperative fashion. We're going to be able to use technical knowledge from the base, the Navy. And they've got, the Navy to me, in some of the activities they have out at the base is like the brain trust of Ventura County. It's just loaded with PhDs, something that our director has. And it's a good marriage, I think. Technical knowledge, expertise, facilities, think of that, equipment, and other resources for application to both military and non-military systems. And what it's going to produce is simply a major step in trying to cope with this whole issue of energy. It's part of a complex policy on energy development, and we should move with it. But the other thing we need to think about here is I read this morning in a paper where the Secretary of Defense is considering closing 100 military bases. If this is successful, if this is ratified next week, it means that we've got a good anchor for our base, naval base here in Ventura County, and it is not going to be subjected to being on a list for closure as Magoo was in 1995. So let's move with it, with the spirit of it, as you indicated by your motion, and let's simply bring it back for ratification.
Okay. Any objections? No objections? Carry this motion over for 1 more week. We go to item 25, Public Works, Watershed Protection District.
Good morning, Chair Bennett, Supervisors, and Mr. Johnston. My name is Darla Wise, and I'm a Water Quality Manager for the Watershed Protection District. I'm here today in place of Jeff Pratt, who could not be here. I'm here to provide a brief presentation or answer questions pertaining to a grant proposal for water quality planning within the Ventura River watershed. The planning effort will augment the Matilaha study and also supplement an overall watershed protection plan for the Ventura River watershed. The grant proposal is for $125,000 from the State Water Resource Control Board and includes a $75,000 match from the Watershed Protection District. Staff recommends approval of the resolution for the grant proposal, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Do we have any questions for staff?
I do have a question.
Supervisor Flynn.
Where does the match come from? From the zone that Ventura River is in, or from administrative?
I believe that would be an administrative, but I'm not positive on that. I'd have to look into that, and I could answer that for you.
Any other questions for staff? All right. Do we have a motion?
Move the item.
Second.
Moved and
With
seconded.
an answer back, though, to the question.
Moved and seconded. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 26, correspondence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move to receive and file.
It's It's moved and seconded. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. We have 10 minutes, and we probably could get a little bit of work done in closed session. I'm sure there's a couple of short items. So why don't we adjourn to closed session for 10 minutes, and we'll come back out for our 9:30 time certain. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to call the board back into session here for a presentation of a resolution proclaiming October 2003 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And Supervisor Long is going to make the presentation.
Yes, thank you. On behalf of Chairperson Supervisor Michaels, she'd asked if I would bring this forward.
Supervisor Long, if I could, we have a public speaker on this
yes,
issue.
We do. Okay.
And so I just received this card. So you want to go? You want us? Okay. All right. So public speaker would like you to go first, and then we'll call the public speaker up.
And as you see in the board packet, we have a letter that's been presented, and certainly would invite District Attorney Greg Totten to please come forward also to speak to the Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This is October, and this has been recognized in years past as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, because we are very aware in this community, as I know we are nationally, that domestic violence is a violence that occurs in our communities, in our homes, on a regular basis, unfortunately. Every year, 1.5 million women and over 800,000 men in the United States are raped or physically assaulted by intimate partners. And child abuse occurs in 33 to 59% of families in which adult domestic violence occurs. So we know that the many implications and ramifications of domestic violence go well beyond the adults who are engaged, who are affected by it, certainly going both to the children and then as a consequence into the community, both in our response and our social service response to it, our law enforcement response to it, and just genuinely our own personal response of the cycle of abuse that is so evident, unfortunately, in our society. The District Attorney's Ellie Liston Crime Victims Assistance Program is joining forces with victim services programs, criminal justice officials, and concerned citizens throughout our county and our nation to observe Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So the proclamation on behalf of the board is certainly to urge all citizens to join in the important observation of this month, reaffirm a commitment to see that victims of domestic violence receive our respect, our understanding, and our help in whatever way we can throughout the year. And I certainly welcome our district attorney to speak to the issue.
Thank you, Mr. District Attorney.
Thank you, Supervisor Long, Chairman Bennett, members of the board, Mr. Johnson. I'm District Attorney Greg Totten, and it is a great privilege to be here today to accept your resolution proclaiming October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. While, as you know, we have come a long way over the last 2 decades in combating the problem of domestic violence, and in my view, it still today remains the single greatest physical threat to our families and indeed to our children. The figures contained in your resolution, which by the way come from the Journal of American Medical Association and the National Institute of Justice, paint a vivid and unfortunate picture of the extent of this social, criminal justice, and community problem. In the District Attorney's Office, we assist an estimated 3,200 victims of domestic violence each year. We prosecute well over 1,500 cases that include both felonies and misdemeanor acts of domestic violence. And we help more than 2,300 victims obtain restraining orders, and in partnership with numerous other organizations like Interface and the Coalition to End Family Violence and other public agencies, we provide a myriad of other counseling, restitution, and support services to those victims. Of course, we all know that the impact of domestic violence extends well beyond the criminal justice system. The Journal of Family Practice estimates that annually the medical treatment for battered women alone is $1.8 billion. We also know that businesses and public agencies forfeit countless dollars in lost wages, sick leave, absenteeism, and non-productivity as a direct result of family violence. Domestic violence also has a profound impact upon our children. Of the 2,300 restraining orders that we obtained last year, 36% of those, well over 800 of them, were for children under the age of 18. Children under the age of 12 reside in 43% of the households in which domestic violence is reported. Make no mistake, even when the children are just witnesses to the acts of domestic violence and not the intended targets, they're still affected. Children living in a violent home, according to sociologists and psychologists, come to believe that such behavior is acceptable and often exhibit the same group of symptoms as other abused or neglected children. We know they have an elevated risk of becoming involved in violent relationships themselves. We also know that they develop very often serious emotional and behavior problems, including depression, anxiety disorders, peer conflicts with adults and other children, and other forms of problems in dealing with authority. Children witnessing domestic violence are also at a much higher risk for alcohol and drug abuse, for running away from home, for fear, and even suicide. And as we unfortunately are reminded all too often, episodes of domestic violence often expand to include actual attacks on children. In fact, the reason given by the majority of women fleeing from the home is that the perpetrator has now turned his attack upon the children. It's estimated that 50% of all homeless people, or all homeless women and children, are homeless because they have fled homes involving domestic violence. Today, thanks to private donations, I'm also pleased to present these bears to the sheriff and chiefs of police here in the county of Ventura. And if I could ask them to please come forward and join me up front. Got Chief Bob Gonzalez from Santa Paula Police Department, obviously Sheriff Bob Brooks, Chief Fernie Estrella from Port Hueneme Police Department, Commander Brian McDonald from Oxnard Police Department, and Sergeant Michael Randa as well. We got private donations to purchase these bears, and as you know, domestic violence is a very traumatic situation for children, and we're hopeful that law enforcement will be able to use these bears by giving them to their patrol officers. And let me just present one symbolically, a bear. We're hopeful that law enforcement will distribute these. We've got over 1,000 of them countywide, and we're urging law enforcement to distribute them to patrol officers who can in turn give them to children when they respond to these incidents of domestic violence. And while they say DA bear, we're calling it Da Bear. And even though they have our seal, we're also hopeful that many law enforcement agencies have their own stick-on badges, and we're encouraging them to distribute these bears to children, because we know through a partnership with law enforcement and other community groups we can combat the problem. And we know that our kids that are seeing this type of conduct firsthand need to have something soothing to help them lessen the trauma in some way. And so I'm very pleased to present these bears on behalf of the DA's office to all our law enforcement agencies. And I'd also like to present each one of you with your own bear that perhaps you can put in your office to serve as a reminder for everyone who visits you of the importance of domestic violence and of its impact upon our children. In fact, I think I'd even like to give one to Mr. Johnston, who looks particularly serious today, I might add.
Certainly can. Thank you, Greg. Does that conclude your comments, Mr. Totten? It does. Great. Thank you. This is obviously a a very important issue. I would point out that your representative at the domestic violence presentation at Seaside Park this Saturday did a very nice job in terms of representing the district attorney's office. So I compliment you for that. I had an opportunity to watch him in action there. Do we have any of the commanders or the sheriff that have anything you'd like to add to Mr. Totten's comments? All right. We do have a public speaker on this item also, so I don't know if you want to get a picture at this point in time quickly or anything. Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And Diane Lonkar.
Our district attorney left his book here. Wow, it's kind of hard to follow that. It kind of threw my little talk out the window. But basically, I'm here today because I wanted to thank the district attorney, Mr. Totten, for requesting that October be Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This awful behavior destroys more lives than all illnesses combined, and in the wake of devastation, drains county, state, and federal financial resources. And as he said, there's over 50% of homeless women and children who are homeless simply because of domestic violence or the effects thereof. I was one of those statistics, and I'm here only by the grace of God. And I really believe that we have an opportunity in our midst to impact domestic violence with our new JJC, because we have a literally captive audience of people that need to be reformed. And the fact is that domestic violence is a learned behavior, and it comes through their families, learning it from their families. There's a book out called Why They Kill, and it's by Richard Rhodes, and he explains the pattern of social development common to violent people. And it's a 4-stage process that he calls violentization. Those stages, it's not specifically about domestic violence, but it talks about how it begins and the genesis of it. Those stages are brutalization, belligerency, violent performances, and virulency. In the first stage, brutalization, a young person is forced by violence or threat of violence to submit to an aggressive authority figure. He witnesses the violent subjugation of intimates, those in his family, and the authority figure sets the example and coaches the child to use violent behavior to settle disputes. That is, of course, with everyone but him. And the other stages explain the progression of violence based on being able to get away with it in the lesser stages. So this empowers the abusers by us tolerating and refusing to stop them at the milder stages. So we grow more and more generations of lawlessness in a violent society. And so this brings me back to what I've often said, that parents can't teach their kids what they themselves don't know or reject as proper conduct. If we don't intervene with the family, like at juvenile hall or the new JJC, then we're passing up a tremendous opportunity to really take an opportunity to train these people and teach them how their behavior is impacting their kids, because so many of the kids that are in juvenile hall come from families where domestic violence has taken place. So, you know, to say that it's that's a juvenile problem is not really fair, adequate, and it certainly doesn't do the job that we have an opportunity to, because they're there. And so I'm really here to ask you to take a closer look at implementing some programs at juvenile hall. Unfortunately, the budget losses to probation have severely impacted their ability to provide more family-focused approaches. But I'm still working on developing Village Hands and Hearts project to supplement the juvenile hall, and I ask for your support and assistance on that. So in conclusion, I believe that it can not only be a comprehensive house of correction to reduce violence, but also a house of healing by ordering the family to participate in domestic violence programs and providing more of them in the community. Our kids and families need this intervention, and I ask that God bless each and every one of you, and I remain a mother on a mission of miracles.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Lonkar. I'd just like to quickly add mine. The complications that come from domestic violence, and particularly from the unreported cases of domestic violence, which are substantial. We can't get the district attorney involved in the unreported ones, but the complications that come from that impact virtually all of the other social programs that we run, whether it's foster care, drug addiction, homelessness, and so there is a tremendous link between those. Any other supervisors like to make a comment? Supervisor Flynn and then Supervisor Parks.
Yes, I'd like to commend the District Attorney, Greg Totten, and your staff. I came to visit some people outside, walked back in when you were just arriving, and the staff that you have is fully committed. Very impressive when I talked with one or two of them, and I want to commend you for that. This is something we have to put our attention on. These children that we talk about, all children are so fragile. They're really fragile. They can be hurt by just a bad word or just a cross look on your face. But these children actually suffer physical harm. Think of it. Think of the fragileness of this. I hope that we can go beyond what Greg Totten is doing and support him by trying to address this issue in a very methodical way by taking a map of Ventura County and identifying on the map where these cases are predominant, where we have more cases here in this section than we do over here, and try to impact that area with counselors, social workers, and so forth. This, to me, would be a way that we need to look at, an element that we'd add to Greg Totten's presentation. His sensitivity to the issue. Well, I really liked your sensitivity. You came, and this makes, in my view, Greg Totten and all of you out there sensitive to what we're talking about. But I hope we can go beyond where we've been for a few years and actually attack this problem in a methodical, creative way. We can do it. It costs money, I know, and we're in money troubles now. But we've got to look how we can do that. Several years, I'm going on a little bit longer. Several years ago, I tried to convince the county CAO and other people of this because I did a study of my district, and I can tell you in my district where the problems come from, where the issues come from, where the broken homes are predominant, and poverty is there, and children are abandoned. But I couldn't convince anyone that we need to attack this problem in a different manner. In addition to what you're doing, we need to take that giant step forward and try to penetrate this area. We've got the resources if we just use them a bit differently. I'm thinking of such programs as CalWorks, for example. We need to make some adjustments in those programs and look at the issue as something that society can solve. I'm really distraught over the numbers of children, another social problem, numbers of children who are shot in the head. I'm really distraught over that. We've got to find a way to bring the community, the people who live out there together with all of us in government and try to pursue a way to address this issue. Those are 2 points, I know. 2 points. But look at the paper. When I read it the other day, 2 days ago, children shot in the head. We've got to do something. Thank you.
Supervisor Parks.
In recognition of this day and the efforts of the district attorney, we realize that it also is something that, as Supervisor Flynn was saying, goes beyond just what the county can do. We look to our schools. We have the First Five Commission, which does help with younger children and helping the parents of younger children to educate them. It also is really starts at the family level and looking at teen pregnancy and how to avoid that and how to assist those that are in that situation. But violence really is kind of a cycle, and it's one of those unfortunate things that is often passed from generation to generation, and trying to break that is very difficult. And while you have a captive audience at juvenile hall, we really need to try to do something to prevent it before it gets to that situation. And I think we need to do what we can with the cutbacks that we are being faced to assure that there are funds available for victim abuse. I think that is what has to be one of our most important priorities as a board. And also in relationship to Supervisor Flynn's comment about doing an approach of looking at it geographically, I think we all have to recognize also that family victims of abuse within families crosses all socioeconomic levels. And I also want to just compliment the district attorney for his staff's aggressive pursuit of grants. And I am just so impressed each week. It seems he comes before our board asking us to approve more grant requests. And these grant requests goes right to the heart of the problem, to helping victims of abuse and prevention. So I do have to compliment the district attorney and the sheriff for their aggressive pursuit of grants, something that we could not otherwise provide. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yep, Mr. Totten. We'll make a great exception to protocol and let you come back again.
I neglected to do something, and if you would bear with me, if I could ask all the members of our victim services staff who were able to attend today, which include both volunteers, by the way, unpaid staff, as well as paid staff, who I think are on the front lines of fighting this problem. They deal with domestic violence victims every single day. If I could just ask them to stand. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, and thank you to everybody there for the hard work on this project. And hopefully next year we'll have a better report. Thank you.
Is that a peace offering?
We're now at 10 o'clock time certain item. That's the public hearing regarding the adoption of a resolution authorizing the purchase of real property located at 2240 Gonzales Road in Oxnard. Mr. Ruffin.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. Johnston. Paul Ruffin from the General Services Agency. Today's board letter includes an attachment of attachment number 3, which is the September 9th, 2003 board letter. That letter contains some details about why staff is recommending the purchase of the property at 2240 Gonzales Road. Basically, the county will realize some significant savings by purchasing the building instead of continuing to lease it. Are there any speaker cards?
Any supervisors have any questions for staff? Been moved and seconded. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you for your concise report. Item 20, public hearing regarding the reprogramming of home funds. Ms. Madden.
Good morning, Chair Bennett, or Vice Chair Bennett, serving in Supervisor Michael's capacity. My name is Christy Madden with the County Executive Office, and I am here this morning to request that your board reprogram $180,000 of home funds to establish a home buyer assistance program for residents of the home consortium area. We have some funds that were allocated originally to the city of Moore Park. They have attempted to establish a homebuyer assistance program in their jurisdiction, and for various reasons have been unable to get that program up and off the ground. Staff did give the city ample time to develop the program and get it underway. We advised them that if that did not happen, that we would reprogram the funds. The primary concern, of course, is that HUD does have criteria and timelines for allocation and expenditure of home funds, and so we're concerned about the timely expenditure of those funds. By establishing this program, we will make the program available to all jurisdictions within the home consortium area. We had some funds that were unexpended for a project in the city of Santa Paula. Santa Paula ended up allocating some of their CDBG funds, which freed up some of the home funds that the county had allocated towards that project. So we are recommending that we reprogram $180,000. HUD guidelines and the county citizen participation plan does require that we conduct a public hearing. This is a noticed hearing to give the public an opportunity to comment on that. And following the public hearing, the board has the discretion of reprogramming the funds for this purpose. So that concludes my presentation if you have any questions.
Are there any questions for staff? Supervisor Parks.
I'm surprised that they weren't able to use the home funds. Is this like first-time home buyer assistance? I know in our city we've had really worked well in sync with the Realty Association so that they're fully aware of these programs, and they also brought in clients. So I don't know if there is some way that we can assist in helping them market or at least showing them how you can make use of these funds, because this should not be happening. You know, from all reports, there's a lot of people out there who need assistance, and I'm just wondering if you know of why this might have broken down, that they weren't able to make use of these wonderful funds.
It is staff's impression that it's a staffing issue at the City of Moore Park and staffing availability to get the guidelines and everything up and running. The county staff has issued an RFP that is out on the street. Proposals are due this Friday. We sent it out to various nonprofits and other organizations around the county requesting that they give us proposals to run the program for the entire home consortium area. So this will provide funding for residents in the City of Moore Park as well. So it actually kind of alleviates the staffing problem at the City of Moore Park and their ability to get the program up and running, and allows us to run it for the entire home consortium area.
And then these funds are going to be continually available, so it's good to get a program in place so we don't have this happen in the future.
Well, certainly the funds that we allocate here, it's kind of like a revolving loan fund program. So as people sell their homes and move up into other facilities, that will come back and replenish the fund. But in all likelihood, $180,000 really won't go very far. I mean, as we know, the cash down payment requirement for home acquisition in a market like we have in Ventura County is significant. So this will really probably only represent a handful of loans, and in all likelihood, if it's a successful program, we'll be coming back in the next funding cycle, which will come to you in March, with a recommendation for allocation of more home funds for this purpose.
Certainly, while it isn't much funds, it certainly makes a big difference in some people's lives.
It's a start.
And
we
maybe also we could get some analysis on what the percentage of those who are defaulting on paying those back. I would be interested to know.
Certainly we
Thank
can
you.
do that. And this is one piece of a large program that county staff has been working on, trying to put together homebuyer assistance programs and mortgage credit certificate program, various things that we layer to try and help people get into housing in this market. Okay? Questions?
Good. Any other questions?
Go ahead and move the item.
I think
we have no cards.
Close the public hearing.
Okay.
Okay. We have no cards. Move the item. Seconded.
Thank you.
Is there any objection out there? I'm hearing no objection. All right. The motion carries. Unless I've made an error, I believe that ends all of our agenda items except for our closed session items at 11 o'clock. And County Council, will we expect to have an announcement? No. All right. No announcement from. All right. Great. Record time. All right.